What up YouTube, Spike Robot here with another video. I've decided to remake my favorite video games video. Mainly because I've made a few changes to it. But anyway, if you've subscribed to me since the beginning, you'll know that I've played many video games. But I've only talked about them occasionally. In this video, I'm going to go in depth into all the video games that I enjoy playing. Video games is basically my second favorite hobby. You know what the first one is. This list is going to actually be very long, so it'll be quite a ride. Also, these are not in any particular order, these are just the ones that I really like. So, buckle up, let's get into my favorite video games. Alright, so the first game on my list is Urban Chaos Riot Response. This first-person shooter has really fucking good gameplay. It has a very realistic feel. There are two types of levels. There are the more traditional levels where you shoot and get to the end of the levels. And then there are the emergency levels where you have to complete a certain task in the time limit. You know what? Both of which are really fucking fun to play. You get a pretty good arsenal of weapons in each. Although it can be annoying that the emergency levels are on a time limit, but it's usually not impossible to complete the task in the time limit. There's only one emergency level that is fucking obnoxious. Yeah, that's the only one. When I say the game has a realistic feel, I say that because there are news segments at the beginning of each traditional level that have live action footage and do actually flesh out the story. But the levels themselves have realistic settings and have characters, both heroic and villainous, use strong language. It is also pretty damn satisfying to get through the hostage situations and kill the gang bastards. There are too many people like them in this world. For completionists, there are certain objectives to complete, like getting a certain amount of enemies tasered, finding a certain amount of masks, and getting a certain number of headshots. I'm the kind of person who chooses what type of completionist task is satisfying. So I think finding the masks and getting the headshots will probably be the most fun for me. You don't have to do any of this shit if you don't want to, but it can be fun to do. This is actually a pretty fucking fun game. Alright, the next game on my list is Serious Sam. This is an FPS game, but it is done in a very tongue-in-cheek kind of way. It has most of the elements, the familiar elements of a video game, like lives, points, and collectibles. In a way, it's kind of like Wolfenstein 3D. But what makes this game good is that it has a really fucking good arsenal of weapons. You got the pistols, 2 shotguns, 2 machine guns, a laser, a rocket launcher, and even a cannon. Fucking awesome. Also, there's a ridiculous amount of enemies that appear in the stages. But what keeps it from being boring is that there are many types of enemies. These include aliens, dinosaur fossils, exploding men with chainsaws, and even bulls. This game also has some damn good music. My favorite track has to be the first one that plays in the one that plays in the level of the game. The first track. My favorite track has to be the first track that plays in the level, the Grand Cathedral. I fucking love the ending as well. It was very well written and is very satisfying, all things considered. If you like the original Xbox, then I highly recommend this game. It's really fucking fun. Alright, coming up next is Serious Sam 2. This is the first sequel on my list. Some may consider this not as good as the first game, but I personally think it is just as good as the first game. It actually makes some improvements. Yeah, I said it. I think it has more varied levels. The first game had a shit ton of desert levels, and only towards the end really branched out. In Serious Sam 2, there are levels in a forest, in a Chinese city, a castle, a snowy base, an alien city, and much more. Another aspect that I liked about the game is that you got very similar weapons from the first game, but they were already actually pretty varied, which is pretty great. There are also even more types of enemies in addition to the ones from the first game, including spiders and even clowns. Yeah, that is fucking bizarre, but if you hate clowns, then shooting them is satisfying. I also like the writing in the cutscene. I also think that the writing in the cutscenes is pretty good, personally. Although the voices can take some fucking time to get used to. I also like that Netriska, who only had messages in text in the first game, actually has a voice and talks to you in the levels of the game, and comments on certain events. It made you feel like you had an ally with you in the game. She and Sam have a pretty damn good dynamic. I really had a ton of fun with this game. I really did. That is why it's on this list. Alright, coming up next is Perfect Dark Zero. While many people consider this game disappointing, I actually had fun. I actually think it is a really fun game. Do I think it's perfect? No. The frame rate can be choppy at times, and the final boss can get pretty fucking annoying, but overall, I enjoyed playing Perfect Dark Zero. It has really fucking good gameplay, and a decent arsenal of weapons. These include a pistol with a scope, an SMG, an AK-47, a shotgun, and many more weapons. One mission has a vehicle section where you can go and blow shit up, which is pretty fun. I also really enjoy the story. Joanna Dark is a character that is cool and sympathetic, and her allies are fun to watch as well. The music in the game is really fucking good too. Sure, a lot of it is in the same key, but it sounds really good. There are so many good tracks, all of which are instrumental. I don't really care about graphics, but I kind of like the graphics in the game too. Sure, they are a bit dated, but they look good for 2005 when this game came out. I think this game is a lot better than what most give it credit for. Alright, coming up next is Gears of War. This is the first game in the wildly popular sci-fi video game series, and it is overall a very fun game. This is the quintessential cover shooter. You have the option to use 2 machine guns, and one that is alien themed and one that has a chainsaw. It is one hell of a gory fun time. It also has memorable levels and enemies. I also kind of like the dark atmosphere. It makes it a damn good game to play on a rainy day. I have to say though, out of all the games in the series, well, that I've played, this one has the weakest story. But as an introduction to the world of Gears of War, it's pretty fucking good. You start to really enjoy the characters like Marcus, Dom, Baird, and Cole. This is not a game for those with politically correct sensibilities. There are a ton of cuss words and blood, and I fucking love it. It's the start of a great Microsoft series. Alright, coming up next is Gears of War 2. The sequel is also a really fucking good game. It has more varied levels, a bunch that take place in a facility with rain coming down, and inside the hive of the alien's core. Hell, there's even a level that takes place in a traffic zone. All of these are fun locations to set the game in. Set the levels in. It has 2 machine guns that are fun to use and it does incorporate the choice options from the first game, which may or may not change things up a bit. But it is still really fucking fun. You can also ride certain vehicle-like aliens, each with their own mechanics. The story is also a significant improvement over the first game. It is way more intense and memorable. It also has good writing, but the scene when Dom finds Maria and is forced to euthanize her is really emotional. It is one hell of a violent bit of entertainment that actually has some substance. And the later levels get more difficult, but never in a frustrating way. Gears of War 2 is a masterpiece. As a Gears of War fan, I just have to include Gears of War 3. I really fucking love this game too. It has many of the elements that made the first 2 games a blast to play. It introduces new enemies that explode into goo when you kill them. But it also has all the enemies you're familiar with, including the exploding bugs from Gears of War 2. I also really like that you have a new Lancer, but also have the option to use the classic Lancer if you can find it. Variety in weapons is very fucking important. One of my favorite levels is the harbor level, where you choose to go to 2 areas in any order you choose. It is also very long and very fucking fun to play. And it is followed by a submarine level that is also pretty fun. I really do like the distortion on the characters' voices in that level too. But this game is by far the most emotional game out of all of them. If you've played the game, there is one scene that cements it, and it is really damn good. But that is not the only reason. There is definitely a sense of finality to the game. It is brought to its apex in a very goddamn amazing and satisfying ending. The ending is so good, I feel that the series should have stopped after Gears of War 3. I don't know how all of you Gears of War fans think, but I really think it was a good place to end it, considering the rest of the games got nowhere near the amount of praise that the first 3 did. Gears of War 3 is a fucking masterpiece. Alright, coming up next is Warhammer 40,000 Space Marines. What really makes this game good is the gameplay. It has 2 ways you can attack enemies. You can either beat the shit out of them with a melee weapon, or you can shoot them with different types of guns. Each of these methods are effective for certain scenarios. There's also a good variety of enemies. These include the orcs, the demons, the alien soldiers that appear later, and the Chaos Space Marines, where you get to perform a bloody finisher to kill them. It also fills up your health. It is all very, it is all really fucking satisfying gameplay. Even when you die, there are certain quotes that actually make you think, like, better to be crippled in body than corrupt in mind. I do like the sci-fi world that the game is set in. It is pretty fucking cool. It is pretty fucking cool. I also like how the story ultimately encourages the player to think for themselves, as shown through Captain Titus. That element deserves its own video. I also like the level where you get to blow shit up. However, it's a bit of a departure from the formula, but hey, variety is important. Yeah, this game may not be like the other Warhammer or 40,000 games, but that does not make me like it less. Alright, coming up next is Max Payne. I fucking love this game. It has goddamn great TPS gameplay. You got a host of good weapons like 2 pistols, the Beretta and the Desert Eagle, as well as a few shotguns, assault rifles, and even a Molotov cocktail. This is also one of the first games to implement bullet time, where you take out enemies in slow motion. The game uses bullet time really well. In the later levels, you get to blow shit up, which is very nice. The parts where you walk across narrow platforms can take some time to get used to, but I still enjoyed myself enough to want to finish the game. The only questionably designed part was the elevator section, where you had to shoot all the laser tripwires above you in different positions. But overall, the gameplay is fucking awesome. The story is also fucking awesome. However, it is very dark. But it is told in a unique fashion that makes the dark material fit so goddamn well. The story is told in a film noir style, with Max Payne narrating the entire game in a very moody tone. And that was my phone. Sorry, it makes that sound randomly. Whatever. But the cutscenes are done in a comic book style. The game also has a very satisfying ending. This game is perfect for a winter night. Alright, coming up next is Max Payne 2. This is also a really good game. Most of the elements and weapons of the first game are here, and they are just as fun as they were in the first game, all things considered. I also like the fact that you get to play as Mona Sachs, who is Max's love interest in this game. Although she played a minor role in the first game. In fact, the game will pretty much tell you when you are playing as Mona and when you go back to Max. However, Mona's gameplay is pretty much the same as Max's gameplay, but the gameplay itself is still fun. But I really fucking love the story. It has many of the elements of the first game, but it is also intense, thrilling, and sexy. That definitely elevates it for me. The ending is filled with so much humanity that it's too fucking real. And I fucking love it. I also remember the end credits song being really good. If you loved the first game, you will probably enjoy this game very much. Alright, coming up next is Vanquish. This game is so fucking fun. I played this game back in high school, and it remains a fun game to this day. It is just straight up shoot 'em up fun, with lots of explosions and a suit that lets you accelerate. You get weapons like an assault rifle, a heavy machine gun, a shotgun, and a a rocket launcher, and more. You can also upgrade the ammo capacity for all your weapons if you go to some green thing in the level, which is really fucking nice. It is also pretty goddamn satisfying to take down the RIs and some of the giant robots. The only thing I don't care for is the bosses. Most of them, to be quite honest, are not that fun to fight. However, I really do enjoy the final boss. For some reason, I had more fun with that boss than the others. Maybe it's because it's a bit more straightforward to fight, despite the fact that it's actually two bosses at the same time. I don't know, maybe it's just the way it's designed. I also really like the story. I really like the characters Sam and Elena. They are overall very sympathetic. Sam is rough and roguish and stands up for what he believes in. Men like him are the reason America has survived for so long. Elena is the technical expert who is always there to help Sam. The story actually gets really good towards the end. It is thought-provoking and has a lot of emotional intensity. I'm gonna get into spoiler territory, so you might want to skip to the timestamp stamp in the description. It is really important that I mention this because I might not get another chance to mention it. The first time I saw Elena drop to her knees and cry when she thought Sam was dead, I was almost as crushed as she was. But when Sam is revealed to survive, I was just as uplifted as Elena was. My point is, fake out deaths work when the audience does not want the character to die. This game did a fake out death better than anything I have seen before. I fucking love this ending. And even the bonus minigame incorporated into the credits. All this and much, much more is why Vanquish is awesome. Alright, coming up next is Gunstar Heroes. This is a classic run and gun style game. There are explosions fucking everywhere. It is actually quite difficult too. But once again, it's difficult in a fun way, not in an arbitrary way. Although one of the bosses you may not defeat is really fucking hard to beat. I think I've only beaten it like a few times. Yeah, it's that hard. There's a level where you have random bosses, although in easy mode, you don't have to fight every single boss. One thing I did not care for at first, but did start to grow on me, is the board game section in one level. Depending on how you roll, you can enter different areas with different objectives, and level design, and also range of difficulty. One of the things that can motivate you to keep playing is that there are no lives. If you keep hitting yes when you want to continue, you can play that section until you get past it. That is fucking great, considering not a lot of Genesis games allow you to do that. This may be one of the best games for the Sega Genesis. Coming up next is Sonic the Hedgehog. Yeah, I actually like Sonic the Hedgehog. As an avid fan of the Sega Genesis, I would be doing a disservice if I didn't include one of the console's essentials. Besides. But yeah, this is actually a game that I enjoy a lot more as an adult than I did as a kid. This is because the game is actually quite hard, but it is hard in a fun way, not an arbitrary, frustrating way. You don't even have the spin dash, but I'm not really sure if that would improve the game. it just doesn't seem to complement having the spin dash. The game focuses a bit more on platforming. In fact, zones like Marble Zone and Labyrinth Zone focus heavily on platforming. I really do enjoy the levels with the 3-act structure, and that have the badniks and monitors that give you power-ups. It gives it a self-contained video gamey style that is fucking nice, and works just so well. I also kind of like how at the end of the 3rd act there's a boss with Dr. Robotnik. Once you beat him and free the animals, it really feels like you beat the level, and it feels pretty fucking good. Now, a lot of people think that Labyrinth Zone is really fucking frustrating, but I don't mind Labyrinth Zone. I go in knowing that it is going to be slow, and like I mentioned, it focuses more on platforming. I also like it is also not really that confusing. It's not really that different from the rest of the zones, except for the fact that there's water. This is a classic game with excellent controls and physics system, and really good music. I actually beat the game easily when playing it on Sonic's Ultimate Genesis collection. So yeah, this game is a classic. Alright, coming up next is Sonic the Hedgehog 2. I actually remember this game for the Sega Genesis when I was a kid. But I think only now I appreciate the game for what it is. The gameplay is just as fucking good as the game is just as fucking good as the first game. But it definitely has more speed. And you also have a sidekick, a fox named Tails, to help you. Although he only really helps you defeat badniks that harmed you, or jump on Dr. Robotnik in the bosses. One thing I liked when I first played it is, and still kind of do, is the colorful level design. All the visuals are very memorable and give me a sense of nostalgia every fucking time I look at them. Now, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is actually very, very easy until Metropolis Zone. That level is really goddamn hard. And to be honest, I actually got more pissed at this level than in Labyrinth Zone. Not only do the enemies have tiny hitboxes, but there's also these annoying fucking spikes that just show up to basically take your rings. And also, it is the only zone to have 3 acts. The other zones only have 2 acts this time. But thankfully, the next zone, Sky Chase Zone, is much easier and honestly much better of a zone. Even the music is more subdued, which is almost kind of like a chill out session from Metropolis Zone. After playing that level, I think I needed one. So yeah, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is a classic that never gets old, even after playing it so many goddamn times. Alright, coming up next is Galaga. This is the oldest game on the list, but it is just so goddamn good. It is fun to play as that spaceship and shoot the fucking alien ship things with many different colors. The levels also get more difficult as the game goes on. I think this game also has very memorable sound effects, including the opening jingle. Yeah. Galaga was originally made for the arcades, but is now available on in the Namco Museum collection, which is available for many consoles, along with other Namco games. I personally played the Xbox 360 version of the Namco Museum. You say Pac-Man, I say Galaga. Alright, coming up next is State of Emergency. If you like arcade-style games, you might really enjoy State of Emergency. It is a game where you can pick whatever mode you would like to play and fuck shit up. I personally like the modes with a 3-minute and 5-minute time limit. The goal is to get as many points as possible. To get points, you can kill the corporation forces and gang members, as well as blow shit up. You can get weapons like guns and swords, but you can also punch and kick your opponents, both of which are pretty fun and effective. And there's a ton of fucking blood, which makes it all the more satisfying. However, if you kill any civilians, you will lose points. Sometimes it's not always easy to avoid the civilians, but I always try and kill the fucking corporation guys and gang members when they are visible. This game firmly flips the middle finger at oppression. Which definitely makes me love it. But another mode I really do like is Last Man Standing, where you are tasked to kill every single one of the corporation member in that stage. And there's a lot of those bastards, too. Also, I like that the guns have more ammo than in the other modes, because you will need it. But once you've killed every single goddamn guard, comes my favorite line. Congratulations, you killed everybody! While this game is not for everyone, one thing is certain. I think this is actually a fucking fun game. Alright, coming up next is Red Dead Revolver. This is a really good Western video game. Like State of Emergency, this is another Rockstar game. But why do I like Red Dead Revolver? Well, the gameplay is fucking awesome. You play as Red. When you play as Red, you can switch between pistols and long guns, depending on which you like. Or, you know, what you're in the mood for. There are also instances where you can do the whole draw and shoot shit you see in Western movies. This system works pretty well, but it does become harder to pull off in the later levels. I also think that the story is pretty good. There are a lot of characters in the game, and you do get to play as a good amount of them. All the ones you play as can attack enemies. That should not be a criteria, but some games have side characters that actually can't fucking attack. Banjo-Tooie is a good example of that. I also like how long Red Dead Revolver is. It feels like an adventure to complete the game, and that is a really goddamn great feeling. However, the hub is pretty much useless. You can very easily go where you're supposed to go, every time, except late in the game. The hub might as well not be in the game. That might be good because I don't care for hubs that much. But I don't have as much of a problem with that as this. You can replay levels individually, but you can only play them in a time limit that is really fucking strict. I just replay the whole game instead of that. Despite these flaws, this is a damn good game. that I feel is too overshadowed by Red Dead Redemption. Alright, coming up next is The House of the Dead 3. This is an arcade-style FPS, and it is pretty fucking fun to play. It has decent controls, all things considered, and it's just a fucking blast to shoot the zombies. I even try and shoot the rings for points, and try to get the health pickups. However, when you first buy the game for the Xbox, the blood will be green by default. If you wish, you can change it to red. But the sneaky thing is, you could change it back to green if you knew you were going to play with your parents in the room. I guess I also do like the fact that it will stay red once you change it to red. I guess I also like the fact that after the first official chapter, you can choose which level you can go to in any order you please. You can try and figure out which stage is the most difficult for you and the least difficult. I also think the story is pretty damn good, despite the fact that the voice acting is not the best. Although it is better than it was in The House of the Dead 2. I've not played the game, but I have seen a cutscene and the voice acting was laughably bad. But I really enjoy The House of the Dead 3 and was not really lost in the plot. Alright, coming up next is Blood Rain. This is a fucking great game. I enjoyed the excellent gameplay and intricate level design. You have the options to hack and slash your opponents and shoot them, both of which are a goddamn blast to do if you have enough enemies. And if you cut up enough enemies, you can enter Blood Rage mode. When in Blood Rage mode, you can cut up enemies in an even more effective way, so lots of blood is guaranteed. Even then, the game still has a ton of blood out of Blood Rage mode. Not surprising, because it's in the fucking title. But I also like the story. It has a wickedly sexy heroine with a serious attitude, and tits you could dial a telephone with. But Rain is shown to have some keen decency as well, and you just can't help but root for her. I mean, one of the enemies she fights against are the Nazis, and it is fucking hard to sympathize with them. While a lot of the levels are fun to play, the level where Rain takes control of a Nazi war machine is very goddamn special. The only complaint that I have is that the final boss is a little bit confusing to play at first, but once you know what to do, it is pretty easy. This game is just so goddamn good. Alright, coming up next is Black. I mentioned this game in one of my rants, but yeah, I really love this game. This FPS has very extended levels with a lot of fucking enemies to shoot and many opportunities to blow shit up. But be warned, the game gets pretty hard in the later levels, so be prepared. But they are hard in a fun way, which they should be. I also like the story. It consists of a soldier who is in prison and is told he can get out of prison if he tells a lawyer about what happened. The levels in the game are the story that he tells. And each cutscene cuts back to him talking to the lawyer with about this with a little bit of background. This is a pretty fucking genius way of telling the story that is complemented by good writing. This is Just a goddamn great game. Alright, coming up next is Soldier of Fortune Double Helix. I had fun with this game right when I started playing the first level, and I just had to keep playing it. It was that fucking fun. This game has a decent arsenal of weapons to choose from, most of which are pretty effective and a blast to use. It's really good machine guns. Also, like all the rest of the games in the Soldier of Fortune series, it has a ton of gore, which makes things all the more satisfying. Even the sections where you blow up trucks and other shit up are pretty fun as well. But what I really like about the game is that it is very long. There are about 53 levels. I kind of like longer games because it feels like the developers put a lot of effort into the game. Not only in just making it longer, but making sure it was playable and an enjoyable game. That is pretty fucking amazing. Alright, coming up next is 13. This game is actually pretty unique. It is an FPS game with comic book style graphics. I think that is pretty fucking cool. But even if you look past the graphics, it is a legitimately fun game. It has damn good gameplay. It has a variety of weapons, including a pistol, a shotgun, 2 assault rifles, a hunting rifle, a sniper rifle, and a crossbow with a scope. It also has memorable levels, and can get pretty challenging in the later levels. There are a good amount of stealth sections if you like stealth. I'm not the biggest fan of stealth, mainly because I am fucking terrible at stealth. But once you get through the stealth sections, the game goes back into the fast action FPS gameplay, which makes it worth getting through the stealth sections. The ending, however, is an obvious cliffhanger. Unfortunately, the sequel did not come out until years later, and it didn't even play like the original. So, it was not really a smart way to end the game, since it probably flopped when it came out. Despite that, it is still a really fucking fun game to play that deserved better. Alright, coming up next is Without Warning. I don't know why the hell this game does not get more praise. I mean, it's not perfect, but there's no such thing as a perfect game. What I like about the game is that you have 6 characters you get to play as. Each of them have their own areas of expertise. Kyle Rivers and Jack Hooper are soldiers assigned to stop the terrorist takeover of a chemical plant. Ed Reagan is good with defusing bombs. Dave Wilson is a security guard with a pistol. Ben Harrison is a news cameraman with a pistol. The game even incorporates broadcast camera work into Ben's levels, which is really fucking cool. I've actually taken broadcast classes, so I know how it works, which makes it more authentic. Tanya is probably my least favorite character to play as, mainly because her gameplay is entirely stealth gameplay, and you know how I feel about that. The rest of the gameplay is pretty fucking nice. TPS shoot 'em up gameplay where you shoot the terrorists, including a few suicide bombers. It's best to shoot the bastards when you're a good distance from them. I also like that the game is really long, too. This game has about 52 levels, like Soldier of Fortune Double Helix. However, the game can get really hard later on, especially when you have to start manually defusing bombs. Also, when you die, you have to start the entire level all over again, which can be really fucking frustrating. But the fact that I was able to enjoy the game even through all that bullshit is a testament to how much fun the game really is. Not to mention, it feels like an ongoing story when you cut back to the other characters, to each other character, which enhances the game for me. And the ending was pretty cool too. Alright, coming up next is Doom 3. You may be thinking, why Doom 3? Well, I think it is the most well made in the series. I played the original Doom on an emulator, and it was a pretty fun game despite the fact that I could not beat the second episode. Doom 3 is a game that I can consistently make through, even with all the hard parts. It has plenty of the gory shoot the aliens up gameplay that is just fucking satisfying. It also has a really good arsenal, with a goddamn great shotgun, a pistol, 2 machine guns, a laser, and a cube that destroys opponents and heals you at the same time, which comes later in the game. The game has very intricate level design and is actually pretty long, both of which are really fascinating. There are even a few levels in hell. It is a game that really makes you feel like you're trying to get through a situation on your own with only a few people helping you temporarily. If you like the Doom series, then this is a fucking good entry in it. If you like 2000s era FPS games, this is also a fucking great game for you too. Alright, coming up next is Sonic Heroes. I first played this game when I was a kid on the Xbox. You know what? It's still a legitimately fun game. It has damn good gameplay, and with excellent level design and controls. I think it is really fucking satisfying to take out as many of Eggman's robots as possible. In fact, there are many types of robots with many colors as well. You have the regular robots, the flying enemies, the turtle, the turtle and the jellyfish robots, the giant robot, the cloak robots in Hang Castle and Mystic Mansion, both of which are great levels that give this game a certain maturity. You can also choose what teams you can play as each of which have 3 characters. There are 4 teams, which include Team Sonic, Team Dark, Team Rose, and Team Chaotix. My favorite team is Team Dark. I fucking love the characters of Shadow, Rouge, and Omega, and their dialogue is just music to my ears. I also think this game has some damn good music. This is a game that gives me a real sense of nostalgia, and I could not love it more. Alright, coming up next is Brute Force. The best part about this game is that you get to go to an alien world and fuck shit up. Killing aliens with certain colors of blood and destroying assigned machines and barrels is just a blast. You can use regular guns or laser guns, whichever you prefer. You can also play as the characters Tex, Flint, Hawk, and Brutus, an alien companion. However, I do find it odd that Flint and Hawk have smaller gauges, have a smaller health gauge than Tex does. When you die as one member, you will automatically be switched to another member, but when all your members of the squad die, you have the option to clone them. Usually in the levels that only have one chapter, the commander gets pissed when you have to clone them, which makes sense because you should not have to clone your squad in those levels. Although some of the later single chapter levels are harder, so at this point it's kind of fucking insulting when he says one of those lines. While not all the levels are great, a good chunk of them are really fun. And the final level is actually pretty easy when you know what you're doing. Brute Force is just a fun game overall. Alright, coming up next is BioShock. This is a very mature game. The story is a bit more complicated than most games, and it is set in the 1960s. It's often very dark, and you're alone for most of the time. But is the gameplay good? Well, yes it is. It is an FPS with a decent amount of weapons to use, many of which are pretty fucking fun to use, or at least effective. You can also collect a bunch of shit like money, ammo, and health packs. There are a surprising amount of times where you can blow shit up. Both of these are pretty cool. Some of the hand powers are interesting, like blowing fire, electricity, and using telekinesis. I will say, the first time you play it, it might be pretty fucking frustrating, but once you know what to do, the game is pretty simple. This is also the only fucking game that I've played that got audio logs right. Usually audio logs are pretty boring to listen to, but the audio logs in BioShock actually add a whole lot to the game's story, and can be pretty fascinating, and they make you think. I really enjoy BioShock. Alright, coming up next is Left 4 Dead. Another FPS game where you shoot zombies. What I like about this game is that you can choose between 4 campaigns to play. All the campaigns are really fucking fun to play, but there are some that I'm in the mood to play more than others. You can also play them at any time you want, and it takes about 40 minutes to play each one. You can also choose between 4 characters: Bill, Francis, Zoe, and Lewis. You can also use machine guns, shotguns, or pistols to kill the zombies, all of which work pretty well. The game also encourages teamwork. Like, you have the ability to heal characters who got hurt by the zombies and revive them. None of these are super amazing, but they're still pretty nice to do. I also kind of like how at the end of the credit style results screen at the end of each campaign, it says insert number here, amount of zombies were harmed during the making of this film. Fucking genius. This is one of the more accessible games for the Xbox 360. It just has a wonderful simplicity to it. And I heard great things about the multiplayer. Left 4 Dead is a fucking great game. Alright, coming up next is Wet. This is a pretty fucking fun game. It has excellent gameplay and extended levels. You get 3 ways to shoot enemies. These include jumping and shooting, sliding and shooting, and running, and wall running and shooting. All these work well, all things considered, and are probably the best damn way to shoot them. There's also a ton of gore, which makes things more intense, and there are also some fire barrels to shoot as well to take out multiple enemies. The acrobatics are satisfying to pull off, and I also like the section where you get into a gun turn and basically fuck shit up. There are also a lot of times where you can enter rage mode. In rage mode, the screen turns red, white, and black. I fucking love the aesthetic. And it is a good way to mix things up. Sure, the gameplay is more or less the same, but I don't really give a damn, because it's just so good. Other positives to bring up. I love the main character of Ruby. She is sexy and has a dirty mouth, but also does have a fair amount of decency. I also really like that the game has many elements of grindhouse movies from the 1970s. It even has fake advertisements as transitions from one area to another. The music is fucking awesome. There are a lot of songs, many of which are really good and memorable, and unique sounding. Sure, it can be hard in the later levels, but I'm almost expecting it at this point.